Hello, my name's Chris, and today I'll be making music. Hopefully, it's entertaining and some educational purpose is served. If you want to know more about me, you can visit my website below. Lastly, you're going to want to wear headphones for the best experience. Enjoy! So I typically start out with just the click and a tempo. I have a tempo in mind and it's kind of going to define the groove here. Torture myself with some trial and error. Fast forward a bit so I don't have to torture you guys. And I'll start messing around with some guitar tones here. This is a little closer to what I have in mind. I'm taking a direct input from my guitar and using some amp simulation of some of the plugins I have. I think I end up on this take here. As you can see, it's not a very long take. I'll just go ahead and clean it up and duplicate it. And now I'll try to make it a stereo part. So the stereo field is actually sounding good. I messed up there, but actually liked it more. So I'm going to make that the main part here and make a new track and have those be left and right. The original will just go up the middle and kind of be tucked away to not be heard at all, or just to add a little extra texture for those who are listening extra close. So here's the take I ended up with. So I do the same thing here and duplicate it across. I make those a group, and so their controls will stay the same, the left and the right side. And here's what we have. The one last piece I'm going to add here that really takes it to the next level is the reverb. It's your best friend and your worst enemy at the same time. As you can see, this feels a little better, maybe something you might actually hear at the beginning of a song. Go ahead and move on to a bass here, and this is probably one of the most important parts of, in my opinion, in a good groove. With a guitar part like this, you actually establish the progression with just the bass alone. So I don't end up using this take, but I wanted to show how important and influential a bass part can be, especially in a groove like this. So I go with something a little more quote unquote groovy. And you'll see here I actually end up recording it without the guitar. That's more like what I wanted, so now I'll copy the guitar part over. So feeling that, I'll go ahead and duplicate over the section once, and I'm going to start importing some drum samples. This process is extremely dry, and it is basically me just going through files and clicking on them until I hear something I like, but it's a very important part, especially if you want it to sound somewhat unique. So I'll just kind of fast forward through this here, and you can see the list of samples that I'll be importing on the right hand side. And I'll usually at least try to get a kick, a snare, and some sort of hi-hat like part, and kind of mess around with that. And so I move it to where I want the beat to come in. You can hear one of the kicks there that I think I'm liking. It has a little high part in it, which is good, and make a little anticipation kick as well. And here I'll just kind of build out the beat a little bit. Try to keep this part pretty simple at first, and then you can build layers on top of it. But you just want to establish that you are getting the groove you want, and you'll hear that here. So you can hear there that I'm getting more of a groove now that we have some percussion. And I'm not super sold on all the sounds, so I'm kind of shaping them to the track to make them fit better. The tambourine there sounds a little intrusive, so I'll go ahead and mute it. Here I'm going to start layering in some more real sounding drums, quote unquote. My main objective here is to get the hi-hat sound of a more authentic, organic drum set. Although these are still samples, you can trigger them using your keyboard. And so here I'm playing the drums on my keyboard. You can see the drums there reacting to the messages I'm sending it. Again, here my main objective is the hi-hats, and also to keep it simple. I don't want to change the groove that I've currently established, but we do want to add the proper textures and layers that this organic sound gives us. I'm also using some more live drum mixing techniques as well, and some extra processing. So you can see those red tracks are all being fed by this drum track that I'm on at the top. And I'm using parallel compression there, which is a common technique when you're mixing drums. I'm liking that. It's a little sloppy, but we'll go ahead and copy over the drums and the samples as well. Gonna tidy up this hi-hat here, which will help with the groove a lot. And now that we have the groove established a little more, I'm still not happy with the bass line, so I'm gonna go ahead and redo that. As I mentioned before, it's super influential, so I'm gonna go back and hone that in. And you can see I have one here. And I go ahead and mull it over while I drink coffee at a stupid late time. Good life decision, Chris. And so this is the take I end up using. So big fan of that one. That's kind of what I've been chasing this whole time. And if you'll notice, it's actually an incredibly simple progression, starting on the 6th chord for all you who are familiar with that, and kind of stays there the whole time, except for a couple licks going into another 6th chord. Now I'm going to move on into finding some extra textures now that we have a really solid groove. And these will just be to elevate it or maybe push the groove into a slightly different grayer area of emotion, and hopefully either lift it up or bring it down depending what we want to do. Here I'm using an arpeggiator that I'm going to try to turn into a pad using reverb. see, I'm messing around with this arpeggiator here, and I have a compressor that I'm gonna sidechain the kick into to duck the pad that I've created. And sidechaining is a common technique, and you can use it in a lot of really cool ways. Here I'm going to mute the kick track in the beginning, but I'll be sending it pre-fader to this compressor. So even though it's muted, the compressor will still be getting the effect of the sidechain, and then when the beat comes in, the mute will be lifted. And yes, I'm aware the intro is a little too long here, but it's important to note there would be vocals here as a verse, and that would lead us into this beat. So you can see I made a last adjustment there to bring the keys up an octave on that pad, and now I'm going to mess with that side chain a little bit because you can really control how fast it comes back and how big it ducks and things like that. So I'm kind of fine tuning that. I'm going to add one last part here, and that will kind of scratch the itch that I've had to get that upbeat part that I was originally trying to get with the tambourine. Go ahead and filter it out a little bit because I don't want it to be a main part. I just kind of want it to be something you feel in the background. So I'll be nice and low here. So now we're rocking, and it's usually where I'd start arranging for a whole song, adding a second verse and all the other parts, and most importantly the vocals. But that'll be it for now. I breezed over quite a bit of technical stuff, so if you have any questions, go ahead and just let me know. There might be more of these in the future, so keep a lookout.